Alana, welcome. And yeah, you've been through quite an experience starting since last September. And here it is, April, and you've finally gotten to the other side of that challenge. As I said, nobody would want to experience one of the challenges that you had to navigate, let alone two. I wondered if you'd be comfortable just sharing a little bit in terms of what it was that actually happened, and we can talk about some of the challenges that came up because of that.
Sure. And thank you for having me do this today because it's a topic that I'm so passionate about. Um, since having gone through it for the last 6 months of my life. Two of my siblings suffered through very critical illnesses. I watched them both suffer for a while, one more than the other, but it was a point in my family's life that was not very fun.
Yeah, and do you mind sharing what the chronology of events were in mid-October? What came about? One day everything was fine, and then the next day, what happened?
One day everything was fine, and the next day my brother was diagnosed with end-stage liver disease. So that's basically a death sentence. He was told that, if he didn't change, well, he wasn't even able to change, he was going to die. His liver was failing, and in a matter of time, he would die. And then we basically lived in the hospital for that day, from that day on. And while we were there, my sister was having some strange headaches, and she discovered that she had a brain tumor. Um, so I started to take care of both of my siblings at the same time.
So, is it safe to say that thank goodness that you work in the industry that you work in? One of the things we advocate to our clientele, our messages to make sure that you do proper planning, that you have a valid will in place, that you have power of attorney. Less than 35% of Canadians have power of attorneys in place. Less than 50% of Canadians have a will in place. How is it that a 34 and a 31-year-old individual happens to have a power of attorney? That's unusual.
So I come from a family of bankers. We're very savvy when it comes to financial planning. And thankfully, when my brother got married, he put a power of attorney in place. His wife was not the power of attorney, but it was still myself and my mom. Um, and then my sister, when she found this out, she was able to go and do one. We told her how important it was that now she went and got one made. So I think for young people, we either think we're invincible, we're going to live forever, there's no need to plan, nothing's going to happen to me, or something catastrophic or tragic happens. And then somebody in their 30s or 20s would realize that, it's something important to do. And thankfully, my siblings had that done.
So, Alana, one of the challenges that you experienced at one of the worst times ever in your life when your brother was just hanging on, you had to get involved with the legal department from the hospital. Can you just expand on what happened there and maybe just explain the intricacies of a power of attorney and the one issue that came about?
So a power of attorney is just a document that appoints somebody to act on your behalf when you're incapable. There's two types. There's one for property, which deals with finances, money, land. And then there's personal care, which would be where healthcare directives come into play. I've been invoked for both. So in the hospital, I would have to make decisions while my siblings were unable to. And then for property, I mean, dealing with tax filing and finances and making sure my brother's bills were paid, making sure he had money, period, to pay his bills and to manage his lifestyle should he come out on the other side. So in every power of attorney, there is a do not resuscitate option. So if your heart stops and you're in a medical facility, if you have a do not resuscitate, they will not save your life. And In my brother's case, he does not have a do not resuscitate, but there's verbiage around it that kind of sounded like he did not want to be resuscitated. So there was a point where we provided the power of attorney to the hospital, and they argued with me over whether or not they were going to save him and take every measure to save him based on this language. So they took it to the ethics board. We spoke with, I may have had the lawyer on call just in case, but had I not fought that, they may have just considered that being that he didn't want to be saved, which was not the case.
Wow. So it's a good thing you were there. It was a good thing that that document existed. If that document didn't exist, what would have been the result?
He probably would have died. And I don't just say that. I've spoken to a few doctors, surgeons, administrative staff in the hospital while I was there, and they said that had we not been there to advocate for him, he would most likely be dead now.
And once you clarified that, was the hospital helpful to you? Was it seamless then? Were you glad that you had the power of attorney?
So they wouldn't disclose anything to me or anyone else. To his wife, they would, but we weren't allowed to know or do anything without that power of attorney. So once the power of attorney was enforced, then I could make decisions on his behalf as he wanted me to.
And just to reiterate, how old is your brother?
He's 35.
And on a bright note, how is your brother?
He's fantastic. He has a new birthday. He was transplanted. He now has a new liver. I mean, his urine immediately changed color to what it's supposed to look like. He is walking and breathing and laughing, and it's a miracle.
And then your sister. So as I said, it's almost you could almost write a book and nobody would believe it. And yet this really happened. And I think the point I'd like to make is we all think we're invincible. Nobody thinks this type of stuff is going to happen. We all expect to see it on the news. We don't expect to see it in our own personal lives. The fact that you were already dealt something that most of us might not be able to handle, and a second whammy. Um, was it just as integral a part of planning that your sister had power of attorney as well?
Yeah, because she also needed help in her meetings and she wanted advice and she had brain surgery. She had a craniotomy, and her surgery was 11 hours. And I mean, it's brain surgery, so the chances of something happening to her during that surgery were high as well. Um, so I had to be there for the 11-hour surgery and make sure that, if anything happened, and I was there, and if anything happened when she came out and was in recovery, I was arguing with nurses and making sure she had the best care once she was finished as well. It's
And
a
your
lot.
sister, yeah, to say the least. And so here we are. It's third week of April. How is your sister now? Where's she at?
She's going back to work. So she also works in healthcare. She's a nurse, which helped tremendously through all of this for both of them, actually. But yeah, she will be going back to work probably sometime this week.
Amazing. I know you wanted to give a shout out to some of the amazing people, the healthcare system. I know they come under a lot of fire, especially in the last several years, but I think they were a great comfort and a great asset to your family as well.
Yeah, my brother was in Credit Valley Hospital and then was in Toronto General. And my sister was at Toronto Western, and they have some of the most fabulous healthcare providers. Um, I mean, they treated my family like royalty. They did what they did with what they had. I mean, the system is broken, but there's some very, very, very fine healthcare providers down there.
What do you think our message should be to young people and old people? Like, do you think, obviously, I mean, I don't know the stats, but I'm going to try to find out. I do know that, as stated, 35% of Canadians have power of attorney. I would imagine that a very, very high percentage of that is 50 and older. How do we get that message out to young people that this is important stuff?
Well, look what happened to me. I mean, I only have two siblings. They both were very sick at the same time. I think it's important for every adult. I don't think it matters how old you are, how big your estate is. You could become incapacitated at any time. It could be for a short period, it could be for a long period. You could be in an accident, you could be ill, and your affairs need to be managed, and you need somebody there to advocate on your behalf. Because honestly, in my case, it was the difference between life and death. And you don't want to wait for something like that to happen to put it in place.
I want to thank you for sharing your story today. I hope some people see this and take action because of it. Because as I said, none of us expect this to happen in our own personal lives. You had two events happen to you that none of us would ever expect to happen and at the same time. So, I'm sure your brother and your sister are eternally grateful for everything that you did for them. We got to watch you support and some of the things that you did. So it's a great outcome. It's a great result. Yeah, there's lots to be grateful and thankful for. So thank you for sharing that story with us.
Thank you. Yeah, not many people get one miracle, never mind two. So yeah, it's all good.
So, Alana, based on your experience, there's probably a number of things that you've learned and we're grateful that you had implemented. What would you say are the top three most important aspects of what you went through and what was in place versus not in place? I mean, I'm thinking first and foremost, the documentation that was in place. What are your thoughts in terms of the top three things? What's the message that you would want to get across to people?
Well, I think that putting a power of attorney in place is a no-brainer. It's an inexpensive way to make sure that you protect your best interests and that somebody's advocating on your behalf, whether it be for your property or for your health. Without it, I mean, without a healthcare directive, our system is flawed. It's beyond broken. I've seen it over and over again. And if you haven't declared a personal advocate, it honestly could be the difference between life and death for you or your family member. Um, and it provides such a immense peace of mind for whoever is enacted as power of attorney or for the family member, just to know that their needs are being taken care of. It's just an easy way to make sure that everything that you wish is carried out.
One of the things you pointed out very early on was the background of your family. Thank goodness for the cohesiveness of your family and that everybody did take action and nobody dropped the ball.
Well, the healthcare system did many times actually, or they made an error, and if we weren't there to catch it, I mean that could have been catastrophic as well. So, I mean they're busy and it's not their fault. They're short staffed. There's no money. There's a lot of things that are going on in the healthcare system that they can't do anything about. But if you don't have somebody there looking over their shoulder, then it could be a big problem.
Yeah, the documentation saved you from that, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Thank you again for sharing that story. I hope it benefits somebody that listens and leads them to take action.
I hope so too.